Hi, and welcome back to the online study of preparing for PPA certification. If you're taking this study in order, you're now on the sixth and final set of test specifications, which is image capture and output. Now, image capture and output accounts for 10% of the questions on the exam, which simply means there are going to be 10 questions from this entire section. There's 3 sections to the image capture and output, so let's begin with Section A. Section A says, select the appropriate capture device for subject matter, format requirements, and final job requirements. Now, Section A has 4 items on the exam. It begins with number 1, knowledge of appropriate use and effects of different ISO values or noise. This begins with ISO effects. Now, we've already talked about ISO in other portions of the study, so why would it show up here again in the test specifications? Well, I think it's because it's asking us to weigh the pros and cons of using higher ISOs when unnecessary. We already know that the higher the ISO, the more likely we are to introduce noise. Now, I know today's modern DSLR cameras can go up to extremely high ISOs without generating a lot of noise like the cameras did just even a few years ago. But I don't think that that's necessarily what you should do. I think you should use the right ISO for the job. So I think in this portion of the test specifications, you're going to be challenged with some scenarios about which ISO is better to use. And I think it's always going to lead you to using the lowest ISO value that you can get away with. For example, if your choice is to hand hold at 4000 ISO, might not it be better to put the camera on a tripod and shoot it at 400 ISO, for example? And I think those are the types of questions that you're likely to encounter. A sports photographer is going to have to use a higher ISO in order to hand hold their camera because you can't use a tripod and really capture the action that sports requires. So again, I think it's just part of the thought process of which ISO should you use in the first place and what other options do you have besides just automatically defaulting to a higher ISO. Now, back in the film days, we would use the grain of the film in order to create an artistic effect. And I suppose there's still a little bit of that element left in today's modern digital photography where using a higher ISO to generate noise intentionally might be considered an artistic effect. But I think we might be better off in capturing the image as cleanly as possible and then introducing any other kind of noise or grain effects in post-production. Section 2 says, knowledge of file size relative to enlarging capabilities. Now again, I feel like we've spoken at length about how file size impacts the quality of the image and the resolution of the image, so we're going to revisit it here again just for a couple of specific uses. We can use low quality JPEGs for images that are going to go on the web or sent through email. But we would want to use high quality JPEGs, or if our camera allows for TIFF settings, to capture images that are going to be used for press products or larger wall portraits. In the end, why not just get the most your camera has to give and capture in RAW format? With RAW format, we have the option of resizing those images as small or as large as we can possibly create them from our file. So I don't think it makes sense to capture anything in a low quality JPEG setting. I think all of the questions that offer you which file type is the best to shoot, it's almost always going to lead you to capturing in RAW, because remember, RAW gives you every bit of the data that that file is capable of capturing, and then leaves the decisions up to you in post-production as to how those images are going to be used. Number 3 says, knowledge of appropriate selection of capture file format, including JPEG, RAW, and TIFF. Again, I think this is something of a review, but it's worth the time to review it here. Remember, a JPEG is a compressed file. In other words, your camera does the processing of that image for you, and it takes all of the data that it was capable of storing for you, compresses it into a much smaller file, and then throws away all of that unused data. You're getting about 25% of the capabilities that your camera offers you for file sizes when you shoot in JPEG. You're eliminating 75% of your file data, and the processing is done by the camera, not by you. So I'm not sure that JPEG is our best solution. However, if you absolutely know that all you're going to do is shoot images for the web, or you're going to shoot images for email, and you just want to put a whole lot more images on your card, then go ahead and shoot in JPEG. You have your choice of shooting in low, medium, or high quality JPEGs. For me, I would always shoot in high quality and then make my adjustments in post-production, but you could shoot in low quality if you absolutely know you're just knocking out images for the web, but I personally wouldn't do it. I don't even think it would be recommended. If your camera has a TIFF setting, that's an uncompressed file setting where the camera will capture the image, it'll give you the data, well suited for photographs that are going to be in publication or larger wall portraits. But heck, I don't know that many cameras anymore have the TIFF as an option. That's why RAW to me is going to be king. By shooting in RAW, you get all of the data that your camera is capable of capturing delivered to you. You get to process that file and convert it into a TIFF or a JPEG or whatever it is you want to do with it. You get to determine how that image is going to be used and what the best resolution and the best setting is for that file as you create that image. Well, that's it for Section A. It's kind of short and sweet. We'll see you next time for Section B.